participatory democracy, as they provide a vehicle for public involvement in matters of common interest. And this statutory meeting is therefore quite unique, as it will convene citizens from various regional spaces to add their voices to the big conversation of regional economic integration, to engage a wide audience in information sharing and discussion. As a regional parliamentary body, SADC-PF is uniquely placed to provide such a platform to the SADC citizens to freely express themselves and provide alternative solutions to some of our common regional challenges. As you might recall, when the SADC summit approved the establishment of the SADC-PF in terms of Article 9.2 of the SADC Treaty on the 8th September 1997 in Blantyre, Malawi, it was clearly stated that the principal objective was to, and I quote, constitute a parliamentary consultative assembly, the ultimate goal being the establishment of a regional parliamentary framework for dialogue on issues of regional interest and concern, close quote. Therefore, honorable members, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants, the purpose of a legislative body such as the SADC Parliamentary Forum is therefore to, among other things, obtain public input on important legislative and policy matters that affect a wide range of our citizens, and to challenge parliamentarians to be responsive as they pursue their oversight, legislative, representatives, and budgetary mandates. Distinguished participants, the debate on the benefit of trade continues to dominate the public discourse, both in terms of growing opportunities for business and the overarching economic and social benefits. The African Continental Free Trade Area Agreement is a promising opportunity for the African region to expand intra-Africa trade by leveraging on its scope, which exceeds that of a traditional free trade area by encompassing trade in services, investment, intellectual property rights, and competition policy and e-commerce. I'm therefore confident that today's discussions will comprehensively interrogate the issue of intra-Africa trade and possibly establish whether the SADC citizens have sufficient opportunities to export to neighboring countries. Finally, honorable members, distinguished delegates, and participants, it is my sincere hope that the outcome of today's deliberations will challenge all of us to advocate for opportunities that promote private sector-led development, that stimulates economic opportunities, more jobs, especially for the youth, and more revenue to meet the needs and aspirations of the citizens. As I conclude, we may have noted on the program that we are commencing our meeting by considering internal procedural matters. At 11, we shall be joined by the citizens of the public for the public hearings. As reflected on the program, our committee will receive oral submissions on various issues, including promotion of small and medium enterprises, intellectual property rights, as well as intra-trade in Africa. We remain indebted to the citizens for honoring our invitation, and we look forward to fruitful engagement. I therefore declare the meeting officially open. I thank you and wish you fruitful deliberations. Honorable members, we shall now consider the minutes to confirm if they are correct record of the meeting. We shall consider the minutes item by item to accommodate any differences in pages across the languages.
Honorable Chair, just a matter of housekeeping. I see that we have a few participants who are in the house. I probably need to facilitate their participation by informing them about the interpretation facility on the Zoom platform.
Please do.
Participants, we have an icon just at the bottom of your screen on interpretation. This meeting is available in 3 official languages of SADC-PF, namely English, French, and Portuguese. On the Zoom platform, there's an icon. Once you click on it, please feel free to choose the language of your choice and mute the original language. Once again, click on the interpretation icon and click on the language of your choice and mute original audio. That way you'll be able to follow through the meeting. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you so much, Edna. Honorable members, as I've indicated, we are now at the consideration of the minutes of the statutory meeting of the Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment, held on Sunday, the 1st May 2022 at Radisson Blu, Sandton Hotel, Johannesburg, South Africa, ahead of the 51st Plenary Assembly under the theme Domestic Resources Mobilization as a Sustainable Way to Manage Public Debt in the SADC region. What role can Parliament play? So as I've indicated, we'll go page by page or item by item just to check if this is the correct record. As you might all be aware, I wasn't there, so I will rely much on the guidance of the honorable members as well as our esteemed secretariat. So let's go. I'm sure we can all see on the screen. We'll start with the item 1 there. These are members who were present. Is this the correct reflection of members who were present? 15 members were present. Okay, we can go to absent with apology. In attendance, the SADC Parliamentary Forum Secretariat. As we move down the minutes. Staff from national parliaments, resource persons. Was that the agenda there? Okay. Page 2, there's nothing on page 2. Let's go to page 3. Anything on page 3, especially on the consideration of the minutes and matters arising from the virtual meeting of the committee held on the 11th October 2021. Okay, let's go to the 4th page. Anything on the 4th page? Page 5. Anything on page 5? If there's nothing, let's go to page 6. Page 6, page 7. Page 8. Anything on page 8, members? Page 9. Okay. That's page 9, which is the last page. Honourable members, who moves for the adoption of the minutes? Can you confirm if they are a correct record of the meeting? Who moves for the adoption of the minutes? Honourable members, I'm sure I'm audible. Anyone?
I accordingly move, Honorable Chair.
This is member from
Namibia.
Namibia. Namibia has moved. Any second?
I second. This is Zambia.
Zambia has seconded. Okay. We therefore adopt the minutes. The minutes are duly adopted. Okay, Now we go into the matters arising from the minutes. Members, are there any matters arising from the minutes? We shall consider matters arising item by item. I'll invite you to raise any matters from the minutes, item by item. I'm sure because of the language, you know that pages may vary. So I'll now invite the committee secretary to clarify any matters that may arise.
Honorable Chair, from my end, I have nothing to apprise the members, but should anything arise from the honorable members, Secretary stands ready to advise.
Okay. Anything, honorable members, in terms of the matters arising?
Honorable Chair,
Yes, this is member from
Namibia.
Namibia. Go
Yes.
ahead, Namibia.
On the recommendations now, I don't know whether this qualifies as a matters arising, as it's not, as I've not noticed it there. I believe during that meeting we have discussed the involvement of young people in agriculture and the need to finance them and to subsidize agricultural ventures in order to enhance our food production as a region. I do not know whether that did not, whether that either could have been, as to why it was not phrased in a manner to qualify to be on the recommendations. Yeah, it's just a query that I have as part of the matters arising. Perhaps it could also have qualified as a correction on the minutes, if at all.
Can I just find out if your issue is that the recommendation to finance young people to be involved in agriculture is possibly omitted in the list of recommendations?
Yes, or whether it did not qualify as a recommendation that Africa and that the region enhance or harness the energy and the imagination of young people through proper financing to enhance our food production and profitability in that particular sector. Because I believe this was sort of a joint meeting between this and that committee, the relevant committee to that issue.
Yeah, that's very clear. Let me seek counsel from both the secretariat and honorable members, whether the two things, whether the said recommendation has been omitted or did not qualify as a recommendation. I can see the SG there. SG, do you?
Chair, pending the intervention of the SG, this is the Shonen Kurasha, Program Manager for Democracy and Governance. If I may guide, the particular matter came under a joint sitting of this committee and the Committee on Food, Agriculture and Natural Resources. And that recommendation is adequately captured under the report and the minutes of the joint sitting, which is separate from the record of this meeting. If that may please the member, I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Kurasha.
Pleasing indeed, Honorable Chair. I'm satisfied.
Thank you. Thank you. If there are no issues, can we conclude this aspect of matters arising? Okay, silence means consent. Honourable members, we have concluded the first part of our business. We'll take a break and reconvene at 11 when the public hearing will commence. The meeting is adjourned until 11.
Thank you, Honorable Vice Chair. Just to appeal to honorable members to hand the log back in at 11 hours in good time for the public hearing.
Okay. Is it also possible to just continue logging in?
Yes, it is. The meeting will still be on.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
The
See
Zoom
you at
platform.
11.
Thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Clerk.
Miss Edna, Shonene, good morning.
Morning, Madam SG.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Hanging in there. Let me rush to the other meeting. I'll talk
Okay.
to you. Yeah, thank you.
All right.
All right.
SG, good morning.
Good morning, good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How is Namibia?
Namibia is hot, but it's good.
Yeah, okay. No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yes.
Let me leave you to go for the other meeting.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Good morning, dear participants. This is Edna Kanguyaziambo from SADC Parliamentary Forum. I'm coming from the Zambian Parliament. I'm a budget analyst, Honorable Chairperson of the SADC Parliamentary of the Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment, Honorable Kiora Pete, members of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, and members of the committee, parliamentarians from SADC National Parliaments, Her Excellency Ms. Boemo Sekoma, SADC PF Secretary General, SADC citizens from across the region, representatives of civil society organizations, representatives from partner organizations, SADC PF Secretariat staff and staff of national parliaments, distinguished participants. I have the honor to welcome you all to the public hearing session by the SADC PF Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance and Investment, which is being held virtually on Zoom platform. I wish to make the following housekeeping announcements before we proceed. All participants are requested to keep their microphones on mute unless given the floor to speak by the moderator or the chairperson. This meeting is available in 3 official languages of the SADC Parliamentary Forum, namely English, French, and Portuguese. On the Zoom platform icon, please select the preferred language and click mute original audio. I'm going to repeat that. Given that the meeting will be presided in 3 languages, English, French, and Portuguese, participants are advised to select the language of their choice or preferred language by clicking on the interpretation icon and click the language of your choice and mute original audio. This meeting is being recorded as part of the journals of the Standing Committee in line with the rules of procedure. Should anyone wish to speak, you are free to do so. Kindly use the function on the platform, the function of raise hand. You may click on that one or simply text in the chat, make use of the chat box. For any communication with the chairperson or moderator, kindly make use of the chat box too. For those participants on video, make sure your camera is properly set as the meeting is being live streamed. All participants are requested to write their names in full, and those that are representing their organizations and those attending in their individual capacity should write SADC citizen and the name of their country. So please, all participants, kindly write your names in full, and those representing organizations, please include the name of the organization. I will now I'll now invite the moderator for the meeting, Ms. Bibichi Muzeka from DRC, to take over the moderation of the meeting. Thank you. Ms. Bibichi.
Oui, bonjour à tous, vous m'entendez?
Yes,
Bonjour
we
à
can.
tous, vous m'entendez?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, again.
Ok, merci, bienvenue.
Loud and clear.
Merci beaucoup, bienvenue à cette réunion. Alors, honorables membres et messieurs, mesdames, messieurs, en vos titres et qualités, bienvenue à cette réunion et surtout d'avoir répondu à l'invitation qui a été lancée par la SADC. Je m'en vais vous donner les procédures pour cette réunion. Madame Edna, c'est ça? C'est bon? Je peux y aller?
You may proceed. You may proceed.
OK. D'accord. Alors, je vais vous inviter à demander à tous les membres s'ils peuvent se présenter succinctement pour qu'on fasse plus connaissance.
Just to assist, this introduction is for honorable members. The rest of the participants who introduce themselves as and when they're given an opportunity to take the floor.
Oui.
I note that honorable members had an opportunity to introduce themselves earlier on during the first part of the meeting, but we've been joined by more participants, so it will be in order that honorable members also introduce themselves at this moment. Thank you.
Edna, did you say we should introduce ourselves?
Yes, Honorable.
Okay.
Honorable members may introduce themselves at this point.
Okay. My name is Ditapelo Kiorapetse. I'm a member of parliament in Botswana. I'm currently the vice chair of the Finance and Trade Committee, the Trade Finance and Investment Committee. And I'm currently chairing, because as you might be aware, Lesotho is chair and they've just emerged from their elections.
Thank you, Honorable. May we have Madagascar? Okay. Eswatini? Eswatini? May we have Namibia? Namibia? I'll proceed to South Africa. Tanzania?
Hello.
Yes, Honorable, you may proceed.
Yeah, my name is Dr. Alfred James Kimea, a member of parliament from Tanzania.
Thank you, Honorable. May we have Zambia?
Honorable members, good morning, Madam Edna. My name is Kalalwe Mkosa, member of parliament.
Thank you, Honorable. May we have Zimbabwe?
Yes, good morning, Edna. Good morning, Honorable Menel Ndebele from Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Honorable. I also see that we have the outgoing chairperson, Honorable Tsipang Mosena. Honorable, please take the floor and introduce yourself.
So I missed that, Edna.
I note that we have the outgoing chairperson, Honorable Tsipang Mosena. She's in the meeting.
Ah, okay.
She's able to, she may introduce herself.
Great.
From Lesotho.
That's wonderful.
Edna, can I chip in? I was sorting. Can I chip in, please?
Yes, Honorable Eswatini, you may go ahead. Honorable Tsipang, you can come immediately after Eswatini.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's Isaac Magagula, Senator from Eswatini, and I'm a member of this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable. Lesotho. Honorable Tsipang.
Oh, sorry. I thought I had unmuted. Good morning, Edna. Good morning, everyone, honorable members, and everybody that's participating in this meeting. My name has been said. I'm Honorable Tsipang Tshita Mosena from the Kingdom of Lesotho. In the Parliament, I'm the Deputy Speaker, and I'm delighted to be part of this very significant meeting with the citizens of SADC. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable, and it's good to have you in this meeting. For now, let me just check if the SG would have something to say just before we proceed with the meeting. Madam SG.
Good morning. Good morning, honorable members. I have nothing to say, save to wish you a fruitful session and deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam SG. I will now hand over the floor to the moderator. Ms. Bibiche, you may take the floor. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Edna. Merci à tous les honorables membres de ce panel. Merci encore. Je vous prierai pour la suite de faire vos soumissions qui devront se faire entre 12 et 15 minutes, s'il vous plaît, comme nous courons derrière le temps. Et il faudra noter que toutes les interventions se feront exceptionnellement uniquement pour des questions qui nécessitent des éclaircissements de votre part. Alors, après réception de toutes les soumissions, il sera question pour les membres de délibérer sur les questions et de faire des recommandations à la plénière. Pour ceux qui ont des soumissions,
just to come in, so we have a program, and the first item on the program, we have Aphrodite to make a submission. Aphrodite, you may take the floor.
Okay. Okay. Il n'est pas présent?
Allow me to establish contact with the presenter.
D'accord.
Can I just check what's going on? I'm not able to hear anything.
Honorable Chair, I'm just trying to establish contact with the first and second presenter. I will be able to get back to the meeting shortly.
No, thanks. Thank you.
Through you, Honorable Chair, if it's in order, the third presenter is in the house, Levy from SAAT, a youth representative. If Levy is in order, is ready, Honorable Chair, we may request that he goes ahead to present while the other presenters come on board.
That's in order. You can go ahead.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Levy, you have the floor whenever you are ready. Sorry for the inconvenience. You were supposed to present around 12 hours, but we have a glitch in our program, so we'll ask you to present now. You may please take the floor. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much, Honorable, and good morning, Honorable members. My name is Levi Singh. I work with the SRHR Africa Trust, and it is a great honor to address the Standing Committee on Trade, Industry, Finance, and Investment of the SADC-PF. The title of my intervention today is If I Can't Move, You Can Trade, and it's pretext around visas, trade, and why they matter to my and other young people's health in the SADC region. So, honorable members, the last meeting I and fellow young people needed to attend in a SADC member state, we ended up canceling simply because we couldn't get visas on time. And I think the point is to be made here that if we can't travel freely in SADC and in the Eastern Southern African region, then what hope is there of free trade on our continent? And if there's no hope for free trade, then there's no hope for medicines and commodities manufacturing in Africa. You see the problem? Young people clearly do. Since the onset of the global COVID-19 pandemic, we've seen stark inequalities become even more clearer to the entire world as Africa was time and time again pushed to the back of the queue for COVID test kits, then for COVID vaccines, and then for COVID medicines. The disregard of the North and the wealthiest parts of the world for African lives was and is still terrifying and immoral. Yet this isn't the first time Africa has had to battle for the lives of its people. During the height of the AIDS epidemic, African activists allied with civil society worldwide struggled to get ARVs to keep people alive. We still struggle every year with the power of the pharmaceutical industries and its grip on intellectual property of medicines essential to keeping our African brothers and sisters alive and healthy. Honorable members, African lives are cheap yet expensive on our continent. Others abandoning us to our own means will always characterize this mode of crisis that we're in, and it will happen again in the next crisis. And as young people, we do not want to live through that again. Our lack of manufacturing capacity mostly becomes newsworthy during pandemics and other dramatic events. Let me give you a stark reminder, which is very close to our hearts as young people. Most of us know that condoms are a single tool with triple protection benefits from HIV, STIs, and unwanted pregnancies. Yet the gap between total available condoms and total needed condoms annually across the SADC region is around 3 billion condoms. 3 billion condoms is the gap that we have due to the lack of our manufacturing capacity on the African continent. Honorable members, 9 out of 10 of the condoms available in SADC are imported, and only 5 countries across the continent produce their own condoms, with 3 of those being in the SADC region. South Africa, my home country, Botswana, and Namibia being the countries reporting to be producing their own condoms. However, these 5 manufacturers on the continent produce and supply less than 10% of the continent's condom requirements. One of the main reasons for this is that few of the locally manufactured brands of condoms meet the pre-qualification standards, which are set out by the UNFPA and the World Health Organization. According to a feasibility study undertaken in 2016 by the SADC Secretariat, the total SADC male condom market was an estimated 4 billion units worth in excess of $105 million US. So I think it's clear that the case for SADC manufacturing is clear, and we all agree, right? Except that during COVID, we also learned another scary lesson about inter-Africa trade and its sorry state. Towards the end of the worst times of the pandemic, South Africa was fitted out to begin the manufacture of COVID vaccines. This was in response to the COVID crisis, but also in line with SADC member states having been early supporters of strategies and initiatives to promote local pharmaceutical manufacturing, such as the Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Plan for Africa, its business plan, and the establishment of the African Medicines Agency. In principle, all our member states should be cheering and supporting. But to our understanding, not a single order for Africa or elsewhere was received by this facility in South Africa. So young people asking the question, why? Are we all racist in that we do not trust our own continent and that we'd rather order from the north? Are we incapable of producing as well and as cheaply as India or Brazil? Or are there other factors that this parliamentary forum should be addressing? Are the travel, employment, and trade barriers that have not yet been set aside part of the problem? We cannot produce goods in Africa if we do not have free movement for import and export across the continent. The African Continental Free Trade Agreement now theoretically creates a market of 1.3 billion people today and 2.2 billion people by the year 2050. Our manufacturers can now theoretically be able to compete through enjoying significant economies of scale and scope. However, to get there, we need deliberate, bold, and thoughtful action. And we also need multilateral bodies to step up to the plate and to order from African markets in Africa. If UN agencies, Gavi, the Gates Foundation, UNITAD, and others continue to distort markets by buying on other continents and providing to Africa at prices that implode our domestic markets, then African manufacturing can never take off in the health sector. And no, please do not mistake this as a call for aid to stop. We understand that aid keeps people alive, but rather this is a call for aid to work collaboratively with Africans to keep people alive, but in a framework that builds sustainability for the continent's long-term health by supporting local manufacturing. Honorable members, SADC needs a framework for this in health. Young people call for the inclusion in both the development of regional legislative frameworks, as well as in the emerging new health finance hubs for the region where such decisions need to be made. As the Standing Committee deliberates on how to domesticate the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, we urge you all to continue engaging us, not only as beneficiaries, but as partners and as leaders too. I thank you for your time and your attention to this intervention, honorable members.
Merci, Lévi, pour votre présentation qui est restée dans le timing imparti. Merci encore. Madame Edna, je ne sais pas si tous les autres intervenants que vous avez contactés, s'ils sont prêts, on peut passer au suivant. À moins qu'il y ait peut-être des interventions par rapport à cette présentation. Si les honorables membres ont des questions par rapport à cette présentation, faites par signe.
Thank you, Bibiche. We're still trying to get the next presenter on board, but what I would advise is that we proceed and request honorable members and participants to make comments on the presentation by Levi. Then we'll proceed after that with the next presentation. Thank you.
Alors, pour tous ceux qui ont des questions ou bien des observations par rapport à la présentation qui a été faite, vous avez la parole, chers honorables.
Just to advise that members can raise their hands virtually by pressing on the reaction button there.
Oui, voilà, justement, il y a une main qui est levée. Je vois Kalaloué, Mukosa. Vous pouvez réagir. Vous avez la parole. Voilà. Vous avez la
Thank you
parole.
so much. Thank you so much, Madam Moderator. I have a few questions to Levi so that he can just elaborate on what he says so that I can also pick his mind on a few things that he said. First of all, Levi, I wanted to get a clarification or to confirm if you said that only 3 countries in the SADC region produce condoms, and if you said from the production that we have in SADC from the 3 countries, we only meet 10% of the demand that is there. If that's what you said, I would like you to explain to us why do you think it is like this? Is it because the other countries cannot establish manufacturing companies to produce the condoms, or is it because we as Africans, especially us who belong in SADC, do not trust the products that we produce ourselves? But even if that is the case, does it mean what we can produce cannot be exported elsewhere? Then also 10% seems to be so low. In an event that we are to improve on the production capacity, does it mean we can meet the demand maybe from 10 to maybe 30 or something like that? Just kindly explain to us on the issues that I've asked. Thank you so much.
Lévi, vous pouvez désactiver votre micro et répondre à la question, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Honourable Member, for that follow-up question. Indeed, in my remarks, I did mention that 5 African countries demonstrate manufacturing capacity on the continent, and out of those 5, 3 are within the SADC region in the form of South Africa, Namibia, and Botswana. Ultimately, the 5 manufacturing countries across the continent can only contribute less than 10% of the total demand of condoms within the African continent. So the 55 countries that make up the African Union. I think your observation is quite correct as well in the fact that we don't trust our products, number one, as Africans. And I think that there's a lot more work that needs to go into conscientizing the African market to buy African and to trust African products. But I also think it doesn't help when global bodies aren't necessarily pre-qualifying and giving the necessary accreditation to African products. So in researching this intervention, I found out that the condoms that South Africa, Botswana, and Namibia produce are not pre-qualified by the WHO and by the UNFPA. And therefore, we aren't able to export these to other markets. And these pre-qualification barriers then really do limit the ability of us to get these sort of commodities that we produce on the African continent into other markets. And it makes it really difficult to compete then with the Southeast Asian producers and the like. 9 out of 10, as I had said, 9 out of 10 condoms on the African continent are imported. And in most cases, they either come from Thailand or they come from Indonesia. There's a very, very minute amount that is contributed to by the African continent and African manufacturers holistically. I hope that that answers your question, Honourable Member.
Oui, Merci beaucoup, Lévi. Je vois une autre main levée. C'est écrit BPT 2021. Vous avez la parole. BPT 2021, vous avez la parole. Vous pouvez activer votre micro pour poser votre question. Je vois votre main levée.
Good morning, Honorable Chair.
Mr. Makambo, I will invite you to take the floor when it's your turn.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, thank you. There's still a hand from BPT 2021. We also kindly wish to remind our participants to indicate their full names and the country they are representing or the name of the organization. Honorable members and participants, the floor is still open for those who may wish to make submissions or ask questions or seek clarification from Levi, our first presenter. Kindly indicate by show of hand.
Yes, good morning. I've indicated.
Good morning, thank you. Kindly edit and indicate your name.
Thank you very much. My name is Upakwe Marukwa. I'm an MP member of Parliament from the Namibian National Assembly, and of course a member of this committee. Just two questions in this regard. The presenter mentioned of, the countries that are producing condoms, in this case in SADC, Namibia, Botswana being one of them. Now, at least that is a show of some sort of advancement, either in the technology of producing this product, and I suppose to a certain measure also research into producing this product. Now, there's one peculiar attribute between Namibia and Botswana, and that is we do not have the populations sizes that many countries enjoy, having populations of less than 3 million respectively between the two countries. So in order to enhance our production, it is imperative and important that we export so that I suppose one can reinvest in the research and also the technology and the ability to produce more of this much needed product on the African continent. So the question that I want to ask in this regard is, are you aware, or are there any current initiatives between these producing nations to actually synchronize their efforts in order to enhance production or improve production through, say, for instance, joint research, joint production, and so forth? South Africa, for one, would be a country that is very, very advanced in production and industry. How does South Africa help its fellow SADC countries, and especially these countries that are already producing condoms, to enhance production? That's one. Two, it's the issue of state-sponsored industry and SME building. China, amongst many nations, is chief in this regard, where China effectively and actively sends out its citizens across the globe to ensure that they are the catalyst of Chinese trade in the globe. What are the initiatives currently within SADC, countries, to ensure that we can build our citizens through sending them out to either to the world, other countries in other continents, and also countries in Africa, to ensure that what is produced, say in South Africa, is consumed in other countries. What is produced in Namibia is consumed in other countries, but the state has an active role in ensuring that its own citizens, or our own African citizens, are the vessels of our own export products. So that is just the two questions that I want to pose.
C'est fini pour la question. Lévi, vous pouvez réactiver votre micro pour répondre.
Thank you, Chairperson. And thank you, Honourable Member, for those two questions. Very, very insightful questions. And I loved your unpacking of the issues of the two separate levels. The first question, to my knowledge, there aren't any existing initiatives. And I think there has been some discourse, at least in outside spaces, that aren't aligned to investment, to finance, and the rest of the thematics covered by this committee. So for instance, the issue of commodity security and health commodity security in particular is routinely raised, for instance, within national AIDS councils, in SADC, and there's often projections around commodity security, especially when it comes to essential commodities like condoms. And this is how we know that there's an annual gap of 3 billion condoms in the SADC region on an annualized basis. But beyond that, in terms of actual research partnerships and in terms of learning and sharing platforms, as far as I'm aware, there aren't any initiatives existing in that regard. And I think that this is an opportunity for further discussion, dialogue, and collaborative thinking around what South-South cooperation and South-South partnerships look like in action, and the responsibility for some of the markets producers like South Africa, who are a lot more advanced, to see how we can work with other SADC member states and other brotherly and sisterly states to really look at sharing some of the lessons. I think South Africa's first condom manufacturing plant was only opened in 2016, so it's not even 10 years yet. But there's been immense lessons in terms of how we've responded to our own national demand and offset the need to import from other markets, namely East Asia, and really produce our own. The ones that I'd used, I'm not sure if you can see it, but these Max condoms are produced in my hometown in Durban, and they're scented, and they're actually really popular amongst the South African populace, simply because of the brand recognition attached to them. In terms of your other question, I think that is outside of my area of expertise, admittedly, but I am happy to maybe have an offline conversation in terms of how through the African Continental Free Trade Agreement and area, through the Inter-Africa Trade Fair, to really look at what other initiatives can SADC member states consider in terms of incentivizing and promoting more entrepreneurial behavior amongst SADC citizens in terms of taking good products to scale and into greater scope within other regions of the world, but also markets on the African continent. I hope that is useful, Honourable Member, and thank you once again for your thought-provoking remarks.
Very good. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup, Lévi. Merci encore. Y a-t-il une autre intervention? Honorable, je vois vous avez toujours la main levée. Namibia. Honorable Vikwakuye, oui, vous avez la parole. Votre main est levée.
Sorry, I do not have translation on. If anyone has the ability to quickly translate for me what is being said from French to English, I would be much obliged, and I'll then be able to answer. I take it is a question being asked opposed to me.
Honorable, your hand is raised. Just to confirm whether that is an odd hand or you'd want to ask another question.
No, that's an old hand. I am satisfied with the answer given, and I shall endeavor to have a conversation behind the scenes with regards to the latter question.
All right, thank you very much. Honorable members,
Thank you very much.
citizens, the floor is still
Merci
open
encore.
for those who may wish to ask questions before we move to the next presenter. Please feel free and indicate either in the chat box or by raising your hand.
Je ne vois aucune main levée. Madame Edna, je pense qu'on peut continuer avec la prochaine intervention. Il n'y a plus de main levée.
Thank you very much. With the permission of the chair, we have a presenter who's ready to present from Southern Africa Cross-Border Traders Association. He will be able to introduce himself in detail and tell us a bit about the organization he's representing. Mr. Jacob Makambwa, you may please take the floor and proceed with your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. You would allow me maybe to present without a video, but probably I'm just going to do it a little bit, few minutes, and then I could get back to no video. I hope you're okay with it, Honorable Chair. This is Jacob Makambwe, a Secretary General for Southern Africa Cross-Border Traders Association, an organization that was established to provide a platform for, providing, a platform for cross-border traders, especially women traders in the southern part of Africa. The Southern Africa Cross-Border Traders Association is actually composed of different organizations that are actually dotted in the SADC countries: Zimbabwe, Zambia, Botswana, Lesotho, and Eswatini, and Malawi. And this is where we are actually operating in these particular countries. So now looking at this particular presentation that we have been given to actually make on this particular honorable platform, we are actually very delighted to actually share with you some of the issues. I think what we submitted in our submission was to look at what are the current policy issues that supports regional cross-border traders, especially women around the SADC region. As you are aware that cross-border trade has been recognized in the SADC region, and we are actually happy that now, even from the SADC Secretariat, we are actually able to have these particular opportunities to interact and submit what we feel could actually be done from the regional perspective. Now, when you look at the challenges that cross-border traders are faced in the SADC region, you know that the systems of formal trade, informal trade in Africa is actually still cumbersome. So we actually see that most of the ICBTs that are involved in cross-border trade are actually affected in many ways or another. As you're aware that we actually just came from the COVID-19 outbreak and the lockdowns, the people that were mostly affected by the COVID and the lockdowns within the SADC region were cross-border traders. Now, we've seen the responses that have actually come as a result of these particular lockdowns, that there's been a reduction of movement of goods and services amongst cross-border traders, especially the movement of people at the period that the borders were closed. We actually saw the migration of the type of business that cross-border traders started doing. We actually migrated into trying and bring in what we call the digital financial services or digital financial platforms that could actually act as a way that the women cross-border traders would actually continue to do cross-border trade. Now, when you look at the current policy instruments at regional level, we actually see currently that several policy instruments at regional level that ensure progression of informal cross-border trade exist in the Southern African region. I'm just going to give you some examples of these particular selected ones. One is a revised SADC Gender Protocol. Article 17 talks about economic empowerment, which actually states that state parties shall adopt policies and enact laws which ensure equal access, herewith, and opportunities for women and men in actually trade and entrepreneurship, taking into account the contribution of women in the formal and informal sectors. So we see that the provision of this particular revised SADC Gender Protocol provides and actually gives member states that they must really try and adopt policies and enact the laws that are actually going to, promote women entrepreneurship, including cross-border traders that are trading. So we see that from that particular perspective, we are actually covered in terms of the SADC protocol that is actually talking about gender protocol that is talking about women empowerment. Secondly, we have the Regional Indicative Strategy Development Plan 2020 to 2030. When you look at the strategic objective number 4, deepened regional market integration, which is connected to continental and global markets. Now, when you look at the outcome there, it actually talks about increased intra-SADC and SADC, interregional trade in goods and services. So when you look at the key interventions around there, it actually talks about the SADC free trade area consolidated, which we actually know that within the SADC region, this particular free trade area actually was consolidated. But we also saw that the SADC FTA, which was actually linking to the tripartite free trade area, and also including the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and other multilateral trade. So we also see in strategy number 3 that cross-border trade instruments to facilitate increased trade by MSMEs is actually supposed to be developed. So we also see that the regional competition policy and model law, and these are supposed to be provided and they're supposed to be developed. So when you look at the RISDIP actually deeply explained on how cross-border traders could also get opportunities in order for the facilitation of women cross-border traders within that. Then the other protocol is actually the SADC protocol on trade, part 2 on Article 3, which actually talks about non-tariff barriers and the elimination of barriers to trade shall be achieved within a time frame of 8 years from entry into force of the protocol. Now, when you see the challenges, despite having all these particular policy frameworks in the Southern African region, cross-border traders, majority of whom are women, continue to face numerous challenges, which include non-tariff barriers, sexual harassment, lack of adequate information on customs procedures, and information on new developments, including the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Women cross-border traders here they actually face both the brunt of the negative effects of the COVID-19, as I earlier alluded in my preamble when I actually talked about the restrictions of travel when the COVID-19 had that. There was also a problem of accessing finances, of which they needed to recapitalize their businesses, ventures, among many other challenges that they actually need. Now, our recommendation to the SADC Parliamentary Forum, in light of the above persistent challenges that have been exacerbated by the negative effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and taking advantage of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, Southern Africa Cross-Border Traders Association proposes the following interventions for women in cross-border trade in Southern Africa. We are actually calling for the finalization of the SADC Simplified Trade Regime, which will benefit women in cross-border trade, who can actually trade within a threshold of about $5,000. We also recommend enhanced and elimination and reporting mechanism for non-tariff barriers at a regional level. Then we also recommend that policies must ensure and the laws at the SADC level are gender inclusive and transformative for the benefit of women, and especially now that we've seen a lot of young people entering into becoming interested in cross-border trade. We also want to urge SADC member states to make provisions for financial and technical support for cross-border traders as means to actually mitigate the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. We also recommend that the dissemination of information, especially on the Regional Indicative Structured Development Plan 2020-2030 and the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement to cross-border traders in the region, is very critical. So these are some of the recommendations that we are making, Honorable Chair, and being given this particular opportunity just to share the challenges and what it is like for cross-border traders within the SADC region. And this is where I end my submission, Honorable Chair. I submit.
Ms. Bibisha, you're muted.
Yes, Honorable Chair, I said I've actually concluded my submission.
Désolé. OK, d'accord. Merci beaucoup. Merci pour votre intervention. S'il y a des questions ou des contributions par rapport à la présentation qui vient d'être faite, vous faites comme tout à l'heure, vous levez la main et on va vous accorder la parole. En attendant que le prochain intervenant se prépare.
Just a reminder that the discussion is not only limited to members of the committee. All participants are free to make their submissions, their comments, and seek clarification. Thank you.
Il n'y a pas de réaction, je ne vois aucune main. Il n'y a pas de réaction. Si vous voulez réagir, vous levez la main, on vous accorde la parole. S'il n'y a pas de questions ou de contributions, Madame Edna, je ne sais pas si le prochain intervenant est prêt. Vous avez pu le joindre?
Thank you very much. Just to apologize to honorable members and the participants, we did receive confirmations from 3 of our presenters. As of yesterday, they had confirmed participation for today's meeting. We have made efforts to call them in the background. Unfortunately, our efforts have not, we've not been successful with our efforts to get through to them. Having said that, let me just check, just in case there's any presenter who has just joined and have not noticed before we close the meeting. I see no indication. Before I invite the chair to give his closing remarks, let me just check if the SG has anything to say. Madam SG. SG, you're muted.
Oh, thank you very much. My apologies.
Thank you very much.
Honorable members, it is what it is. We made an attempt to invite the citizens of SADC to engage with you, and the cancellations were unexpected, and therefore we have no choice but to allow members maybe to deliberate on the two issues that have been tabled before you, and a guide on key recommendations that can be taken forward to plenary assembly. I thank you.
I don't know, Madam SG. I was just thinking that the rapporteurs and secretariat were probably jotting down the guiding notes towards the resolutions, and I thought they would lead that part.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. From the two presentations, what came out prominent is the fact that the SADC region still lacks extensive research and technology in as far as production of condoms, and also there's an opportunity for member countries to come up with initiatives to have joint production with other countries that have capacity and also large economies of scale. What we also note, honorable members, is from the presentation from Southern Africa Cross-Border Trade Association, is the issue of cross-border traders, most of whom are women. And as you may know, most households in the SADC region are headed by women and youths. So therefore, there's more that our governments and our region can offer to women to assist them undertake their cross-border trade activities. And we also note from the presentation from Levi, the issue of lack of free access across borders still is becoming prominent in terms of cross-border trade. Again, comes in. Without free movement, honorable members, you will note that it becomes a challenge for our business people in our region to easily cross across borders for them to trade within the region. Those are the few issues that I picked, honorable members. However, a comprehensive report will be done and will be shared with honorable members before the 52nd plenary. Thank you.
Thank you, Edna. You also have feedback on chat. If you may just look at that and cross.
Okay. I don't know if this question was asked to one of the presenters or it's a new question.
This is a new question, Honorable Chair.
The one by Julia Sibale?
Yes.
Okay. This second presenter, is he able to read the question and perhaps respond to Julia?
Okay, Honorable Makambwa, I may assist by reading the question. How is SADC helping its countries to take part in the African Continental Free Trade Area trade, and how are the policies and mechanisms in place? Are there policies and mechanisms in place in the region? How are the policies and mechanisms in the region aligned to those required for the African Continental Free Trade Area? Mr. Makambwa?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you very much for that particular question. Actually talking about how the SADC member states or maybe countries actually providing platforms or preparations to try and maybe enlighten its citizens on the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. I'm just going to give an example for Zambia, that Zambia has finalized the implementation strategy, which was actually participatory, and we were actually invited to participate in its development, and now it's actually ready for implementation. So meaning that the information through the ministries of commerce, like here in Zambia, is that they actually call for all stakeholders to have input. For example, like when we were deciding, which products would actually trade under the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement between Zambia and Angola, we were involved to try and identify some of the products that were able to trade within Zambia and Angola in the framework of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. So we see that trade in services is actually coming prominently. And I think the negotiations from the regional point of view on the trade in services from the SADC point of view under the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement was actually fine. Ready to start, implementing. So sorry about that. What is actually critical? Sorry for the interruption. Somebody was just trying to cross a call. Yeah. So as I mentioned, that what is actually critical now, we are actually talking about the Continental Free Trade Agreement. There are several challenges that could actually be resolved at a continental level if they are implemented. But now you see that the participation of women cross-border free trade agreement require preparedness in terms of what they could. Sorry, honorable members, that somebody is just trying to cut through a call. But basically what I was just trying to say that there is a lot of information that is actually coming as a result of the implementation of the Continental Free Trade Agreement at country levels. But what we also need is that how is it going to facilitate the movement of small-scale traders where we still experience a restrictive movement in other regions, especially now that we are talking about the implementation of the simplified trade regime at a regional level. It could also be good that the entire continent could actually adopt what we could actually call the simplified trade regime. And I think that could facilitate the free movement of people and the movement of goods and services within the region. I submit, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Makamba. But just, I would like you to link the issue of the inadequate participation of women in terms of cross-border trade to the issue of finance. Do you think there's enough incentives for women to access cheap finance or is affordable finance for them to participate in trade in the region?
Yeah, thank you very much for that particular question. I think one of the issues that we recommended in our submission was to try and provide some kind of financing that is affordable for cross-border traders where they are able to have access to it. We've actually seen that certain countries have actually put provisions on how SMEs or MSMEs will be able to maybe have access funding that is provided, from the regional perspective. We actually saw the SADC Secretariat advertising the participation of different women associations as entrepreneurs to have access to the resources. So we see that some of those responses that the regional groupings like SADC is trying to put could actually now try to eliminate those inadequacies in terms of financing or linking them to financing. What we are actually trying to call upon maybe the regional groupings or maybe member states is to specifically provide resources that can be accessed at any other point for those that are involved in cross-border trade. For as long as they've got a market, for as long as they want to get products, and to make sure that the traders themselves are part and parcel of the value addition processes to make sure that they have these particular products produced and they're supposed to be exported into the countries where they actually needed. I submit.
Thank you, Mr. Makamba. I want to check one last time with our participants. Honorable members, distinguished participants, the floor is still open. Our two presenters are still available to attend to your interventions.
Doesn't look like there are interventions.
Oui. Et comme ils sont là, ceux qui veulent intervenir, vous faites comme d'habitude, levez la main si vous avez quelque chose à dire.
Okay. I see a question in the chat box from Julia and another one from Mamehele, but I also see a hand from Namibia. Probably let's listen from Namibia, then I'll be able to ask the presenters to attend to the two questions in the chat box. And this is particularly directed at Southern African Cross-Border Trade Association. But if Mr. Levi also has a response, please, you may feel free to indicate and respond to the question. Honorable from Namibia.
Yes, thank you very much. I don't know whether this is more of a comment or a question. Am I audible?
Yes, you are, Honorable.
Yes, I don't know whether it's a comment or a question. And it's perhaps an issue that relates to two matters.
Allez-y, vous pouvez.
An issue that relates to two matters, one being our raw material. I think as African countries, we need to get to a point where, again, the issue that I raised earlier, where we pull our resources, hence ingenuity and energy together, to start processing our own resources and stop exporting our resources to other countries in raw form. That's one. Two, it is about time that as African countries, as SADC countries, we start investing in one another. This issue of us as Africans not having confidence in our own products, just as it has been highlighted in respect of sexual health products, i.e. condoms, it is the same, that we are comfortable in Canadian companies being financed by financiers in Canada, coming to extract resources in Africa. We are comfortable with Russians extracting resources in Africa. We are comfortable with the Chinese extracting resources in Africa. At some point, we must get to a point where African countries can pull resources together, collateralize companies that are from Africa. And perhaps if we don't have the expertise, reel in the expertise from countries that have, but they come and extract resources from our countries on our terms with our own money. Because if we have money to be handing out, say for instance, in the case of Namibia, we are able to get loans and be able to hand out drought relief to our people. The same way we can join forces with other African nations, source money, and be able to do that. Perhaps the small question in that regard is, what is the impediment to that? Is it political, or is the impediment?
Likes ice cream.
Yes, is it a political impediment that hampers African countries from us working together? That's one. The second issue that yes, perhaps I will leave it at that for now, and then I can address the other issue.
Yeah, so can I respond to the comments that are in the chat?
Oui, oui, je pense qu'il n'y a pas de problème, vous pouvez toujours le faire.
I can go ahead. Thank you.
Okay.
I saw the two comments that are in the chat box. One is actually specifically asking if SADC has got the trade information portal, which is specific to SADC. As much as I know, I haven't seen one that is specific to SADC, but I think at country levels, like in Zambia, we have a trade portal that is actually anchored through the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, where we're able to get some reliable information and linkages in terms of information. In light of the digital financial services and also the e-commerce, there is actually need for SADC to dedicate this particular trade information portal that could actually greatly improve the accessing of the information on trade, through digital platforms, and which is now most of the platforms that people are using as a result of the impact of COVID-19. The other comment is actually talking about the importance of looking at developing infrastructure that would respond to the needs of medium and medium entrepreneurs. That includes the cross-border traders. I agree with that particular comment. Infrastructure is critical. We have actually seen the interlinked infrastructure between countries. For example, they just completed bridge, Kazungula Bridge. Such type of infrastructure could actually improve, regional trade, especially minimizing the challenges that women face in terms of cross-border trade. We have also seen the implementation of the one-stop border posts within the SADC region, which actually facilitates and quicken the clearance of goods and services and the movement of people when they are actually conducting trade across the borders. I submit, Chair.
Merci. Je vois une autre main qui est levée. Honorable Nani, vous pouvez baisser votre main, comme ça, Monsieur Ntombo Vuyo peut poser sa question. Vous avez la parole.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the recognition. Good day again to colleagues and everyone in the meeting. I only have one question pertaining to the movement of goods and the movement of people as far as the intra-trade agreement is concerned. Want to check with our esteemed guest who has presented rather a very insightful presentation. And there's a question of sovereignty of these countries, because as far as the intertrade of Africa is concerned, it still acknowledges the sovereignties of countries. But then it then becomes a problem when, in particular, women. Remember, when you have to move from one country to another country with the goods and the business that you are trading on between the countries, it goes with all the benefits of a human being. If you are a woman and you are in the trading space and you are pregnant, and it happens that you deliver while you are on business in another country, there is this issue of resources of that particular country which becomes withheld in order for you to benefit from them. So as far as the SADC is concerned, I do not think we work together in a space of affording, especially women, the benefits that they deserve and we're closing them out. If you're a pregnant woman on your 8th month and anything happens, you are from Zimbabwe and you are in South Africa, you have to quickly go back home without finishing the business that you came to South Africa for in terms of trading, simply because you're fearing of, I'm going to be told I don't belong here, I must go to my own country, and vice versa in other countries. The recognition of rights of people, as far as all the benefits of that country is concerned, you need shelter there, you don't need restrictions, you need health there, there shouldn't be restrictions. So there is that particular problem that becomes a hindrance in our trading, especially where women are concerned, that they are restrained in various ways. How can we deal with that? Thank you.
Honorable Chair, a very good submission from the comrade there, talking about the issues of sovereignty and how Africa must look at each other as not being foreign from each other. I believe that this is a critical aspect of why we would actually want to have a region where citizens are not discriminated based on coming from other countries. If we are both Africans, can we be able to treat each other as citizens of one continent, rather like what is actually happening now, where the same sovereignty now it tells that other people are discriminated against, and they are actually accused of taking up jobs for other people within the region. But I believe that these issues really brought in a lot of problems, and I think that included the xenophobia that we experienced. And now when we are talking about working together and trading together within the region, we need to live as brothers. And I think member states must address this particular issue to try and promote oneness amongst ourselves within the region. And I think I also want to link this particular issue that also talks about peace and security. And I think it has been raised as an example of Mozambique. If these particular insurgencies are going to continue, they are going to block those particular trade routes, meaning that there will be no movement of people in the region to actually do trade, because these insurgents would actually be grabbing, goods from people, even maybe killing people. So there is actually need for the SADC region or SADC as a regional body to actually try and address these particular pockets of violence that are coming as a result of xenophobic attacks and as a result of the insurgencies that are happening, for example, like in Mozambique. So we need to address the issues. If a protocol talks about a free movement of persons from one country to the other, there should be a way that people must be protected and their rights must be protected, being citizens of the region, to make sure that they are protected by the laws of that particular country so that they do not suffer that discrimination that we have actually seen in the recent times. I submit, Chair.
Merci, Monsieur Makambwe. Honorable Vipokuye, vous avez une intervention, votre main est levée. Honorable Vipokuye.
It's probably an old hand, or
D'accord. Dans la messagerie, je vois qu'il y a encore des interventions. Je ne sais pas.
Honorable Chair, I saw a comment from Zimbabwe that talks about the sanctions that are being imposed. For example, that Zimbabwe has been, under some sanctions, and then I think the person that has submitted that concern wants to know if we are actually going to continue to support, such type of, processes like sanctions that are given to a particular country without being supported by a regional body like SADC to make sure that we actually work together. How are we going to achieve what we call the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement? I agree with your sentiments around sanctions, and I think these are some of the issues that has to be dealt at the member state level, where the heads of states are actually meeting to try and address these particular issues on dealing with the sanctions that are given to a particular member of a regional grouping like SADC. So there must be ways on how these are protected to make sure that it does not affect their participation in any international or continental activities in terms of trade, or whether a country want to participate in these particular protocols that we've actually acceded to as member states. So there is actually need to come out honestly to protect countries within our region against these Western sanctions that are coming, and maybe some of our countries are trying to replicate and try to prevent our neighbors to trade with us. I submit, Honorable Chair, I could not get your translation as you are actually trying to implore more people to give some comments. I believe I've actually given a fair comment on what has been presented in the chat. I submit.
Ok. Merci beaucoup pour votre intervention. Madame Edna, s'il n'y a pas d'autres exposés, je pense que je vais vous rendre la parole. Madame Edna, les autres orateurs ne se sont toujours pas signalés.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bibici. I don't see any further hand or any point of intervention. Let me just check with Levi, just in case he may have a comment or two to make based on the discussion that has been going on. Levi?
Thank you, Chairperson. No comments from me. Just a very enriching discussion, and I am learning a lot. Thank you very much.
We appreciate your presentation and your comment. Thank you very much. Honorable members, distinguished participants, Madam SG, there being no further questions and comments, may I now invite the chairperson. There's an indication that Lesotho is facing.
Thank you.
Before we close, there's a question in the chat box.
Oh, okay.
Lesotho is facing a serious challenge by being wholly surrounded by South Africa with respect to free movement of persons to exercise their right in accessing other countries. We have a very disturbing case of Basotho, especially women received from Newcastle, having overstayed in South Africa and have now been declared undesirable in South Africa for 5 years. This effectively says they can't travel to any country since they've had to travel via South Africa. What would the association say about this restriction? Mr. Makambo, do you think you would have a comment to this person?
I do not have maybe an answer to that, or probably an intervention, but probably these are some of the issues that I mentioned, that as Africa, we need to protect each other. We are not supposed to discriminate against each other. The citizens of Africa must be the citizens of Africa, and no one should be discriminated. So there's actually need to really try and implore the member states to try and start sorting, maybe providing solutions to such type of problems that are coming, where citizens are actually discriminated in such a manner. So I submit.
Thank you, Mr.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Makambwe.
Honorable Chair, I would now like to invite you to take the floor and render your closing remarks.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. The honorable members of Parliament, the SG of SADC PF, Mrs. Boemo Sakoma, esteemed resource persons, staff of SADC Parliamentary Forum, the staff of national parliaments, distinguished participants, honorable ladies and gentlemen, I'm honored to deliver the closing remarks as we come to the end of our successful and intriguing committee session. Let me start off by most profusely apologizing for the 3 presenters that couldn't join us. It was circumstances beyond our control. Let me offer special appreciation to all resource persons for sharing with us their wealth of knowledge and vast experience on issues relating to intellectual property, trade and investment, among other things. Allow me to express my sincere gratitude to you, honorable members, for sparing your valuable time, especially on a weekend, to attend the committee sessions on a Saturday. I must admit that your active participation is a testimony of your enduring commitment to matters of regional importance. In a special way, join me in thanking our committed participants for the feedback, quality engagements and submissions, including the strong recommendations in as far as trade, finance, and investment is concerned. Ladies and gentlemen, what you have showcased today is evidence of your desire to influence decision-making that supports peace, inclusivity, and sustainable economic growth in a participatory manner. Ladies and gentlemen, the reality of the region is that the financial sector continues to provide non-inclusive financial services and products which do not adequately support growth of small and medium enterprises and cross-border traders, most of whom are women and youth. As observed, if the financial sector remains unresponsive to the demographic and gender realities, the region may miss a great opportunity to stimulate investment, boost the capacity of small and medium enterprise, and expansion of exports of high quality. I therefore wish to underscore the relevance of the financial sector in boosting the potential of cross-border trade and small business and increasing opportunities for broader economic participation. As policymakers, I'm confident that we have gained a greater understanding of the strong relationship, and it's now time for us to reflect on how best we can support our people back home, in ensuring that we create environments that support growth and investment. Honorable members, distinguished participants, we noted the linkage between free movement of persons being largely felt by women and youth. There is therefore more that our governments can offer to support economic agents of trade and guarantee their security. As I conclude, I wish to invite you to join me in thanking the Secretary General, Mayor Boemo Sakoma, and the entire Secretariat for going an extra mile in promoting citizen participation through an open door policy at the regional level, so that the voice of the SADC citizenry is heard. Gratitude is also extended to the moderator, Mrs. Mozuke, for running the program smoothly. Let me, having said that, thank you, and thank you so very much. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Thank you, honorable members and participants. Our meeting ends here. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.
Thank you.